encountered over 3 meters of hard-packed snow in the middle of the road. A neighbor, Mrs. Coates, who lived a mile away, trudged across the fields to babysit Judy when there was an urgent need, such as when her baby brother David was born. Judy had become a big sister. She was 2 years old, going on 3. A few months makes a difference at that age. Russell Meek, the youngest son of the only neighbor, was in grade 7 when Judy began grade 1 at the age of 5. Russell had always skied across the fields to get to school during the winter months, so he trained Judy to climb on the back of his skis, and they went to school that way in the winter months for the first 2 years of her school. Roads were built up and made winter accessible by Judy's 3rd year of school, so it was a much easier 1.5 miles to make the walk to and from school each day, rain, shine, or snowstorm. When Judy was young, her dream was to become a nurse. She won more than one public speaking contest with her speech, Florence Nightingale, the Lady with the Lamp. In her early years, Florence Nightingale was Judy's model. She was going to be a nurse just like Miss Nightingale, and that is what she did. The family moved from the farm in Creemore to a small home at Wasaga Beach in Christmas of 1958. Judy had just turned 12. By this time there were 5 kids. Elizabeth, Grace, and Lois had been born while still on the farm. Kathy was born while all lived at Wasaga Beach. Judy wanted to earn her keep, so it was not long before she acquired a paper route, delivering the Toronto Telegram along Highway 92 east of the bridge across the Nottawasaga River. Eventually acquiring 5 paper routes, delivering both Toronto Telegram and Toronto Star papers. When Judy and David gave up the last of those paper routes, drivers in cars were hired to deliver them instead. Kathy was the 6th child, born into the Heisey family, but came with some serious heart issues, an almost certain death in 1960. Judy became the homemaker as Mom went with Kathy to Sick Children's Hospital in Toronto to badger the doctors to keep Kathy alive. Despite all this, Judy made honor roll, played in most available sports, and earned her athletic letter before any of the boys in her class at Elmville District High School. She completed grade 13 and then went directly into nursing school at the hospital in Orillia, Ontario. The dormitory was a house next door. Nurses wore uniforms then, and trainees wore very distinctive ones. Judy's uniform was a starched white cap and a blue dress with a very white frock. She resembled the lady on the old Dutch Glenser cans. At 4 foot 9 inches with a very tiny waist, she made a very cute little nurse. Judy was achieving her dream of becoming a nurse, becoming her own version of Florence Nightingale. Life went on. Judy married Doug and they began raising a family, and she continued nursing. Somewhere along the way, early on, she became upset with certain things she saw happening in hospitals. Judy, like some of her other nursing friends, wanted to be in a position where she could make decisions to correct wrongs. She looked elsewhere for an opportunity to fulfill her passion of nursing. In her search for a better way to fulfill her passion, Judy began to work in senior care at the Manor in Collingwood, taking care of the local people she had grown up with, fulfilling her dream to have influence in other people's lives, just as Florence Nightingale before her had done in the Crimean War. Judy remained all her life in Ontario, near where she had been born and had grown up, except for the few years when she, Doug, and family lived in the Minden, Ontario region, where they took care of a hunt camp and she nursed in the small local hospital. She never lived too far from Collingwood. While in Minden, Judy was the only person on duty one night in Minden. An accident victim arrived with a seatbelt piece firmly cut into his neck. Her nurse training was put to good use, whether at work or while serving dinner to their American hunters when one choked on a pea. Judy lived a good part of her life in Ottawa, just south of Collingwood, in a home where she and Jim raised Zachariah, Rebecca, and Christopher. After Jim died suddenly, it became Judy's retirement home and the place where she developed her passion for photography. She lived with a camera around her neck. The local camera club became her obsession in life. On one trip, it was not a picture of the location where she stayed that Judy sent back, but a picture of a rhododendron that she'd found while she was exploring the local flora. That picture captured 2 passions in her life. Judy wanted to explore Canada, and having her parents and siblings distributed throughout Alberta, what a better opportunity. In 1981, when she went to Fort McMurray, where her brother David had acquired a pilot's license and an airplane by that time, she got to explore the mines and forests in that area from the air on August 13th, 1981, as it shows in his logbook. One trip to help celebrate her parents' 65th wedding anniversary in 2009 to Fort Saskatchewan, and another with Cindy and her boys, involved a trip to West Edmonton Mall and a dinner at the old spaghetti factory. This trip also included Drumheller and the Royal Telluride Museum of Dinosaur History that was on her bucket list. When living on her own was no longer an option, moving to Ottawa to live with her daughter Cindy became a new adventure. She very much enjoyed her time with Cindy, especially the time when her and Ben were just the 2 of them. Her most recent trip was to the East Coast, exploring land purchased by Wayne and Cindy. Throughout her life, Judy had the opportunity to explore much of Canada, but Collingwood was always the place that drew her back. Judy's life ended a bit short of at the age of 75. She would have been 76 in a few months. Her life spanned a time when she came home from her birthplace by horse and cutter, where she had to ski to school, to a time where she could easily get on an airplane and in a few hours explore a new part of Canada that she so greatly loved. The world and Judy both changed during her lifetime, but Judy never lost her passion for nursing. She just gained a couple of others. Judy made a difference in other people's lives. She is missed and will be remembered. And that was from Uncle David. Just into June. Jazz, do you wanna? Yay! Yay, Uncle David! And now, Jazz, if you would speak.
Hey everybody, thank you for coming. I'm really excited to see how many people are here for her. I just love how many lives she's changed, and well, here we go. My grandmother was an incredible woman, as she was to many of us. She was my best friend. She was part of some of the best moments of my life and a safe haven for some of the worst. We have had many adventures together, and though they looked small and boring to some, she and I could find as much wonder in a mossy boulder at the edge of an empty parking lot as one would find in the ancient pyramids. She always knew how to laugh the pain away, to find beauty in everything around her. Her love for her plant life, the birds in the backyard, or her friendly smile, or the friendly smile of a neighbor are some of the things I've always admired of her the most. They're qualities that we will always share. Grandma, I miss you greatly, but I know those adventures aren't over. Every time I pour a coffee and sit down to watch the birds in my own backyard, I know that you'll still be there beside me, laughing the pain away. Thank you very much.
Hi everybody, thank you for coming. I'm Judy's daughter Becky. I have something to read from my Aunt Liz that she sent in for everybody to hear. Born Judith Agnes Heisey, December 16th, 1946, the firstborn child of Arnott and Evelyn Heisey. Judith, or Judy as she was known by, was born in Creemore, Ontario. At the time, Arnott and Evelyn, mom and dad, were living on a farm in Creemore. It wasn't long before Judy's brother David was born, and as they grew older, it didn't take long before the two siblings had formed an inseparable bond. One that from time to time led itself to a lot of mischief. They did most everything together. Where one was, you would often find the other. Mom told the story about the day that she couldn't find either Judy or David. After looking all over the house, she heard a commotion inside the kitchen cupboard. There was a reason for their hiding. They had taken one of the knives from Mom's good silverware, which was a wedding gift, and the two of them had been using it as a hammer. This silverware still carries the marks from that special bonding time. These are the words that would describe my sister Judy. Loyal, committed, determined, understanding, steadfast, loving mother and grandmother, sister and friend. Judy was loyal. Every family member or friend would tell you that Judy was a loyal friend to them. Even when the relationship grew distant and years passed, Judy would give the friend or family member the benefit of the doubt and find a reason for the distance and be ready and willing to return to the relationship. Judy was committed. I remember when Judy married Doug McLeod and found herself pregnant with her first child, Wayne. At the time, she was studying to become a nurse and had not yet completed her training. We all wondered whether she would give up her dream of becoming a nurse, but no, she was committed to finishing. It was her chosen profession, one that was difficult at times, but one that she loved dearly. Shortly after she finished, Cindy was born, her second child. Judy was determined. When Judy found herself in the situation of being a single mom, she was determined to raise her children on her own. Even though she could have asked for help, she would not. She told a story about having only $4 in cash in her pocket, and Cindy needed a winter coat. She had gone to a second-hand store and found one for $6, asking the woman in charge that day if she'd be willing to sell the coat for $4. The woman refused, and Judy went home disappointed, but even more determined to provide for her children. She would find a way. Judy was understanding. Judy was blessed when the opportunity to have a loving relationship with Jim Robichaud when he came into her life. Jim was the love of her life. As with any relationship, it had its ups and downs. However, Judy, when using her attributes of loyalty, commitment, determinedness, and of course understanding, the relationship blossomed. And when it came to more children, Jim's, Chris, and then Becky and Zach came. Judy was steadfast. When Judy was diagnosed with lung cancer and the initial shock wore off, Judy turned her strength into steadfastness. She put her feet on the floor, so to speak, and became steadfast in the desire not to give up to the disease, and she did not. She was resolved to add as many more years to her life as she possibly could. When she'd made her mind up about something, she used her inner strength, her steadfastness, and gave it all that she had. Judy, a loving mother and grandmother, Judy loved the role of motherhood. She was so proud of her young children and grandchildren. It was always her desire for each one to succeed beyond their wildest dreams. Lifelong learning, in whatever way you can, was one of her mottos. Not only was education important, we were reminded to take the time to smell the roses and maybe watch the birds. And of course, don't forget, the sun rises, the sun sets, and oh yes, the frozen ice formations at Wasaga Beach in the wintertime. She captured them all in her amazing photography. Judy, a sister and friend. I have fond memories of Judy as early as possibly 1.5 years of age. She would push me around in the carriage all over the farm. Of course, David was there too. She was responsible for me quite a bit when I was young. Often our mother would make a lunch for our father, put it into the carriage, and Judy, along with David, would push me down the back lane, out to the field where we would find our father on the tractor. Other times, Judy and David were required to pick vegetables from the garden or apples for Mom, and Judy would push the carriage to a good spot where I could watch, and I would sit there totally infatuated. Judy wasn't always the doting sister, though. By the time I was 5 years old, I think she was a bit sick and tired of looking after me. I remember when the decision was made to send me to school the September before I was age 6. I would be starting grade 1. Judy and David sometimes crossed a farmer's field in the morning because it was the shortest route to the school. Of course, living on a farm in Creemore, Ontario meant the winter would come early, and it wasn't long before the snow was up to my waist or past it. This made the shortest route impossible for me. However, Judy was responsible for getting me to school safely, so Mom told her to pull me on the toboggan. I still remember her reaming me out all the way to school. She didn't want to be late, and I was holding her up. As I mentioned before, Judy and David were together often, and they were sometimes a bad pair. They came up with some pretty wild stories and planned some pretty wild schemes. One winter day, they decided to tell me a whopper. I presume it was to get back at me for having to pull me on the toboggan, or perhaps for some other reason. Well, it just so happened that I wore a full-length bright red winter coat, and due to my age, I would get out of school early each day and had a choice to either wait for Judy and David to finish school or to walk home myself on the main road if it was plowed. One morning, Judy and David decided to tell me that there was a bull down the road and in the field by the road on which I had to walk alone, and he would chase me if he saw my red coat. Of course, I believed everything they said, and I ended up crawling on my hands and knees on the opposite side of the road in the ditch all the way home. Mom asked me what had taken so long, and of course I told her. It had taken me so long to get home that Judy and David arrived home within a few minutes of my arrival. I didn't quite believe them after that. Judy was a friend. In the past few years, I have enjoyed many a conversation reminiscing about childhood experiences, our children, future plans, and many other topics, including politics. We were great friends. I have enjoyed every minute. She has been an example of strength in my life, and I miss her. Judy had a favorite saying, and in the end, it's not the years of your life that count, it's the life in your years, by Abraham Lincoln. We can truly say that Judy had a lot of life in her years. Rest in peace, Judy. We love you.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak? I don't have a lot else to say other than thank you for coming. Yeah. As you can see, we miss her a lot already. And we're just gonna keep going.
Yeah.
So I found a poem that really spoke to me, and I thought I'd read it at the end. So it's called She Is Gone. It's by David Harkins. You can shed tears that she is gone, or you can smile because she's lived. You can close your eyes and pray that she will come back, or you can open your eyes and see that she is what she has left, or all that she has left. Your heart can be empty because you can't see her, or you can be full of the love that you shared. You can turn your back on tomorrow and live yesterday, or you can be happy for tomorrow because of yesterday. You can remember her and only that she is gone, or you can cherish her memory and let it live on. You can cry and close your mind, be empty and turn your back, or you can do what she would want, smile, open your eyes, love, and go on. And that's all I really have to say. So, thank you very much, everyone. We have the boat until 1 o'clock, so everyone's welcome to stay and mingle, and thank you again for coming.
Yeah. So, at my father's funeral, I sang a song, and I thought that it would be appropriate to sing it for my mom too. I'm having a really hard time today. It's okay. It's okay. No, yeah, I'm fine. There's a little bird somebody sent down to the earth to live on the wind, blowing on the wind. And she sleeps on the wind, this little bird somebody sent, light and fragile and feathered sky blue, thin and graceful, the sun's shining through. She flies so high up in the sky, way out of reach of human eyes. Light and fragile and feathered sky blue, the sun's shining through, and the only time that she touches ground is when that little bird is when that little bird